Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Mazak, and today we are talking about embracing and creating seasonality. Ooh, I love this topic. I talk about it a lot inside of my programs, and I do think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but today I want to talk about creating and embracing both things, seasonality on multiple levels of time. So I want to talk about it in terms of creating or thinking about seasons of your career that take place over many years. I want to talk about the seasonality that is kind of inherent in the academic career with semesters or terms. I want to talk about seasonality in our weeks and even creating rhythms in our days, which is another type of seasonality. I'm so excited to dig into this topic with you. But first, I want to let you know that soon we are opening our enrollment period for our Navigate Your Writing Roadmap program. We're running a summer cohort. The first meeting starts May 15th and runs until July 31st. And our enrollment period is coming up. So if you want to be the first to get that application link when we open up for applications, then please go ahead to scholarsvoice.org/navigate and find the pink button, which will say get on the wait list. Unless you're listening when we're open for applications, and then it will say open for applications. But here's the reason you want to be on the wait list. Our enrollment for the program involves a pre-enrollment call with me. So not only do you apply, but you also get a personal one-on-one call with me as part of the application process. On that call, we decide together whether Navigate is the right next step for you. And if it is, then we can enroll you in the cohort right on the call. But my time is limited, of course. So the number of call times I have is limited. So if you want to make sure to get a call time that works best for you, please go ahead and get on the Navigate waitlist today. Again, scholarsvoice.org/navigate. Hit the pink button to get on the waitlist. All right. I'm so excited about talking about seasonality. So I had been planning a podcast on seasonality for a while, but then I have been reading Cal Newport's new book called Slow Productivity, which I'm going to do a whole podcast episode dedicated to a book review of that book. And it's so interesting because one of the things he's talking about is seasonality as well, and this idea of creating it. Again, though, I've been talking about it for a while, and I wanted to do kind of an updated podcast episode about it. So let's dig in. And I think let's start high level, long time period, and drill down to the everyday. So one of the things that actually Cal Newport says in his book is that we don't often plan out past the next few months or a year of our work. And of course, when you join a coaching program like Navigate or one of my other programs, right, or do a one-on-one package with me, you do that kind of bigger, high level, longer term planning. And I think it's really important. It's not important because you are going to make some kind of definitive plan that you stick to. No, it is important because of seasonality. it's important because you want to think about your career in terms of not trying to do everything at once, but rather experiencing and crafting your career into seasons. This is something that's going to really help you not get burnt out. Actually, it's going to really help propel your creative work forward and really allow you to work on impactful projects. Now, timelines in academia are long compared to other fields, right? Our timeline to getting a grant, grant reviews take a long time, months and months, maybe even 6 months, a year. Our time to get something published, depending on your field, may take years or months. If you're in a book field, certainly books take years and years to produce, not just for you to write, but for them also to be edited and printed and sold. So the timelines are long. So it makes sense for us as academics to kind of think about and proactively design those long, timelines and these longer thinking about our career as seasons that might be years long. So let me give you some examples that are actually non-academic examples, and then I'm going to give you 2 personal examples that are not academic, and then my personal academic example. Okay, so thinking about creating seasonality over years. I recently released a podcast called My Mission. And in that podcast, I talked about this business, which is now called Scholar's Voice. It always just had my name before, but now has the name Scholar's Voice. And that I am in somewhere around year 7, 8 of business since 2017. Summer of 2017 was the first version of the Navigate program. And I really feel like it took from 2017 to winter 2023, that season of my business was the expertise building, experimenting, on a positive day, I would call it playing, testing period of my business, where I really was creating many, many things in order to hone my own expertise that around what I really wanted to say and do, what my unique perspective is on professional development related to writing, publishing, and career for academics, right? So that period of time took, 2017 to 2023. So that's 5 years, 5, 6 years. So that was a season of the business. 2023, winter 2023 till now has been an additional season. And it is the season of focus, of simplification, of honing craft rather than creating new things. It's really honing my ideas, my teaching, and my program. Specifically, Navigate Now is the only program that I'm offering. Really honing that into something simple and sustainable and my life's work. Really the thing that I feel like this is the most important work I will do in my life is creating this program for you all. So these are seasons. I hope that, I don't know how long it will take, but I am, and I explain this in more detail in the podcast episode called My Mission, I am setting a goal for myself to help 1,000 women and non-binary academics dramatically change their careers through writing and publishing between now and 2030. And so now that I've set that goal, I feel like I'm headed into the next season. The season now is I have the program, I have the ideas, I have a really renewed sense of what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do, what I want the business to be like, how I want to serve the clients. And now I am creating it, and that the next season will be this helping 1,000 people season, which is what I think is how I'm going to make my legacy mark on academia. Because if I help 1,000 of you and then you go off and live out academia differently and influence your students and your colleagues and everything, it's like dropping 1,000 pebbles in a pond and seeing the ripples create a wave. After that, I don't know what the next phase is after that. It might be a season of slowdown. It might be a season that looks like retirement or semi-retirement. I'm not sure because I'm making this up as I go, but I know I have an intention for what this next season is. It's a season of 1,000 changes, 1,000 careers changed. That's the season I'm going into now. What I want you to think about there is I was not intentional about the playing and testing season. I didn't necessarily think of it as that while I was in it. Kind of wish I did, but hindsight is 2020. But that season was long. It was 5 years long, maybe kind of 5-6 years long. And that's the kind of seasonality, high level, multiple year seasonality that I'm talking about. So that's a personal example from my business. I'm going to give you an example from another business that my husband and I are working on right now, which is we recently bought a dairy farm in southern Puerto Rico where we live. I mean, it's about an hour from home, our house. This is a dairy farm that I would say, well, my husband is a dairy cattle nutritionist. He works in agricultural extension as well as faculty at the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez. So this is like, he now gets to apply all of his book knowledge and all of the work he's done with farmers to his own enterprise, to his own farm. And I'm helping him do that by doing like the operations finance part of the business for now. I don't want to do it forever, but I'm doing it for now. And that brings me to seasonality. Okay, so when we took over this dairy operation in November, the dairy is just not, we had to make a lot of changes. We had to fix a lot of things. And so for the last, now it's March. So from November to March, the dairy has not been breaking even. So we are in a season of kind of rebuilding and starting not from zero, but taking over and recreating, infusing more life, changing strategy in this dairy. And also, we're in a major season of learning and making mistakes and figuring out how we want to lead this business. We have a team of people who work the farm. What do the positions need to be? What is their relationship to each other? What does management look like? All of these things. We're in this season of, I would call it maybe a season of reconstruction. But for us, for my husband and I, it's a season of learning, like serious learning. And it's really hard. So I am taking time out of my work week to, at least one full day a week I'm dedicating to that business. My poor husband is working his university job and then in the evenings working on the dairy and on the weekends working on the dairy. So sometimes he'll leave, he'll go to campus, he'll teach, he'll do his, university stuff, and then he'll drive to the farm, and then he won't be home from the farm until 8 p.m. because he's really working 2 jobs. I'm working 1 job and a part-time, and actually my full-time job isn't even that full-time. I have so much autonomy over my time, thank goodness, in this running Scholar's Voice. But we are in this season of reconstruction and learning. And because the dairy is not breaking even, we're not paying ourselves for that work. So we don't have profit to take from the dairy. All of the money just goes to running the dairy. It's just a closed loop right now. But the way I'm getting through this time period is thinking this is a season, because it really is. And we know that once we hit a certain benchmark in production, that we will enter a new season. And we have several of these kind of benchmarks that we want to hit. And we think that we'll get to our top benchmark, in 3 years, 5 years at the latest. And the only way I can understand it and not feel hopeless, truth be told, is thinking in seasonality. This is a season. I'm learning as much as I can in this season. We've actually done amazing work to turn around this dairy in the few months that we've had it. With the zero experience I've had personally, of course, my husband has kind of adjacent experience, but academic experience and seeing, it's just so different advising farmers than being a farmer. So it really is like, okay, what does the next year, 3, 5 look like? And thinking of these as seasons, like we're in the rebuilding season, and then we will be in building, right? Rebuilding, then building, then maybe growth and something else. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's years long. And so now I will apply this same idea of years long seasonality to using the example of my own academic career. So as you might know, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and recommend my podcast to a friend. If you're new to the podcast, you may or may not know that I was a tenured full professor before I left that job in 2019 to fully take over and to fully run Scholar's Voice. So I had a whole academic career. I got all the way through full, like I did the whole thing. And one of the ways that I was working on kind of seasonality in my career was when I would take maternity leave. And so I was very, very fortunate to have 55 working days of maternity leave every year, which if you can time correctly or appropriately or optimally, I guess I would say, you can get basically 6 months or more off with the baby, because we were thankfully able to time so that baby would be born, and then maternity leave would end kind of when summer would start. And that is how I manipulated my year to get the most time with baby as possible and the most recovery time for me physically and mentally. So that said, each of those leaves, I would think of the return from the leave, the exit and going on to the leave, and then also the return from the leave as a season. So when I had my third baby in 2015, I was off for a long time with her. When I came back, I was coming back very slowly. It was a season of, let me just put my toe back in these waters and let me do kind of like the minimum amount of work possible, because I know I wasn't going to be sleeping, because I had experience now that I was a mom of 3. And I had 3 instead of 2 or 1, which is also a big deal. And I was older, so also a big deal. So I would think of the maternity leave as a season, and then the return from maternity leave as a season. I wasn't trying to jump back in to my full height of non-pregnant production after the maternity leave. It was a season. I was going to come back. I was going to ease back in, and then I would build back up again. And I did that in a very deliberate way. Another way that you can think about seasonality, and that I talk about it often in the programs, is in order to avoid burnout, you also really need to think about your career in seasons. And again, these seasons are long, years long. So a lot of times I encourage you all to think of a word of the year. So think about like, okay, well, if I was going to, like, this is the year of blank, right? So this is the year of clearing out my pipeline. This is the year of submitting for grants. This is the year of collecting data, that kind of thing, so that you take that expectation away from yourself that you have to do everything at 100% effort all the time. You don't. You can create this kind of seasonality very, very deliberately. Now, sounds easy. It is simple. It is not necessarily easy, because there's a lot of mindset that goes into the belief that you can create that seasonality. So, for example, when I came back from maternity and I said, oh, I wasn't going to go too far too fast, I felt very secure in my job. I was already a full professor. I had 13 years of experience as a professor at this university. I was senior. I had a lot of confidence in my ability to navigate that return and keep the overwhelm at bay. And a lot of it had to do as well with scarcity versus abundance mindset, right? If you want to create that seasonality, you have to believe that you don't have to do everything all the time, that you will be actually, and this I believe 100%, you will be more productive if you intentionally lean into seasons than if you just try to do everything like go, 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 go. So the first highest level place to create seasonality in your career is over years. Sometime when you get a chance, and I encourage this kind of strategic meeting with yourself once a semester, but at least once a year, sit down and think about the next 1, 3, 5, 7 years. Again, not to make a detailed plan that then, you're going to make some kind of decision and then your plan's going to go awry and then you're going to feel some kind of way about it. Not for that reason, but rather for the idea of how can I pace my work? How can I think of my work in seasons so that I can build towards the creation of something bigger or more impactful, or even just the creation of something that feels a lot better than trying to create at a harried or frenetic pace. The next level of seasonality that I want to talk about is the academic year. Now, I say over and over on this podcast, the academic year ebbs and flows. And we're kind of lucky because unlike other knowledge work jobs or other kind of traditional jobs, our job is seasonal. There are seasons built into it, right? So if you're on a traditional semester, then, and it doesn't matter whether it's the traditional semester or a trimester or something else, whatever it is, your university has seasonality in it. It has fall when the students come back, and then a 15-week semester and then time off. And maybe there's a winter session, maybe there's not. Then everybody goes back in January and you have a 15-week semester and then you're off for the summer or optional for the summer, right? So there is seasonality, but there's more seasonality than just that in the academic year. And this is really, really important. There is seasonality in the semester, right? You know, because it is March and we are now solidly in the middle, maybe even a little tipped over the edge into the second half of the semester, if you're on a semester system, and you are in the thick of it, right? You're in the, as I call it, the moment where the semester hits the fan. And you got to kind of hold on by your fingernails until May. This is another kind of seasonality, but instead of just accepting it, or actually, instead of being surprised by it every semester, where like week 8, 10, things start to feel like they've gone horribly wrong and you're stressed out and your writing just gets dropped and you're behind in your grading and you start to say, oh, maybe I'll just need to work on the weekend so that I can quote unquote catch up. All of that is actually pretty predictable seasonality. So instead of fighting it, or instead of expecting from yourself exactly the same level of writing productivity or any kind of productivity during the 15 weeks of the semester, we should have different expectations, seasonal expectations for the semester. At the beginning, we are hopeful. There is time. We can fit things in. Towards the middle, we need to treat ourselves with a lot of self-compassion, also the same at the end, before we rest. So instead of fighting seasonality, or the ebb and flow of the semester, I like to call it, I would love for you to start to think about riding it like a boat floating over waves. And without a wave in week 10, taking you under, And so how do you do that? Well, you have to be really intentional about how you schedule your time, how you say yes to things during certain weeks of the semester. And in Navigate, we use a method, yellow, green, red, mark up your calendar method when we create our 1-year writing roadmap that helps you see this seasonality and then manipulate it in your favor. You might not be able to manipulate it right now because you're right in it right now, but looking towards the future, next time around, next semester, could you more gently ride up and down the waves, floating rather than being drowned, right, during the semester? So I think that we're very fortunate in academia to have this yearly rhythm, this yearly seasonality, and it's something to really take advantage of. I know that some of you, most of you think about, well, in the summer is when I'm going to get a lot of writing done, because for some of you, or at least for almost everybody, there's a kind of mental shift in the summer on academic campuses. So there's fewer students often. Even if you teach during the summer, there's fewer students. Classes feel different. There's definitely like a slowing down in the summer. And lots of us take advantage of that slowing down or want to take advantage of that slowing down in order to get our writing done. Shameless plug for doing Navigate in the summer for this reason. But also, you definitely want to take rest time in the summer. You want to start your summer with a nice resting period as much as you can so that you can recover from the semester. And again, like ride those ebbs and flows instead of fighting them, instead of powering through the end of the semester into the beginning of the summer because you have to get your writing done and you have so many projects. Instead of that, a more measured approach, a more float up and over the wave rather than fighting it, paddling desperately. So seasonality in the year. We talk a lot about it in Navigate. We have specific lessons for creating it and for embracing it. And I think it's really important. All right. Next level of seasonality is the week. What kind of weekly rhythms can you develop that's going to make your work feel spacious, that's going to make your brain have the capacity to work on the big ideas that you're working on? So what are some ways that you could manage your weekly flow of appointments and scheduling and email and writing and all the things? How can you manage that week in order to get some space? Again, in Navigate, we do an exercise called Ideal Week that talks about this. Go get on the wait list, then you'll be able to join. But really, like, there's a few things that you can think about here. So one thing to think about in terms of the week and the kind of seasonality or the flow of the week is building in downtime during the workday. And I said this in a coaching call recently, and one of the clients was like, I just don't know if I can do that. Like, I don't know it seems so wrong to take off half a day in the middle of the week. And I was like, yes, but it is so good for your brain. It is going to make your writing better. It is going to make everything better if you can take some downtime. So I'm not going to, there's definitely like time blocking methods you can use. You can do, I remember working really hard during my career to pile all my teaching into Tuesday, Thursdays or Monday, Wednesdays, so that I would have these kind of days without meetings. And then I could kind of try to schedule all my student related stuff on the days that I teach and then keep more clear days for research and writing. There's lots of ways to play with the rhythm of your week, but I want you to just start noticing it. And I want you to think about how seasonality over the week is also important. Again, we do have, there is a seasonality to the week. Fridays are usually slow. On the weekends, supposedly you're not working. If you consistently work weekends, take the Navigate program. We will solve that problem. Mondays are usually busier than other days. Maybe that's a great day to not schedule anything, right? Is a Monday. so that you can start your week a really grounded, centered place. There's so much that you could do to really take control of your week and make it feel more spacious. So yeah, seasonality over the week and then in the day as well. Okay, so down to the nitty-gritty daily level. One of the things I talk about on this podcast and in my program is your soaring state. Your soaring state is your best time of day, the time of day where you kind of naturally have attention and energy. Now, I always acknowledge not everybody has this. If you don't have it kind of quote unquote naturally, or it's not something that you can tap into, you're like, I don't know, I don't have that surge of energy at any time during the day. There's things you can do to manipulate it, to engineer it. But let me just speak to those of you who do have that, like, oh, I'm a morning person, or my late afternoons are the best time, that kind of thing. If you know the rhythm of your day, the rhythm of how your energy flows during the day, then you can change your schedule to align better with that rhythm. For example, I have always said on this podcast, between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m., I can move mountains. This is my best writing time. It's my soaring state for sure. It's when my brain is like the best at like putting ideas together. It is just the best time for me. So if I'm teaching a lecture class that I've given 2 or 3 times before during that time, it's a little bit of a waste of that energy, because I should be using that energy for thinking rather than performing, which is what I'm doing during class, right? So instead, I was always trying to put my classes in my lulls, which would happen between 12 and 2 or 3, because I would naturally get energized by the students. I would be able to have a plan and execute it. I didn't need that best energy for teaching. Now, some of you might, so that's a decision that you make, right? But as I got more and more in touch with my own energy during the day, I can schedule my day to best take advantage of those energetic moments. It's like thinking of the seasonality of your day, the rhythm of your day, and it's worth a look. It's worth a thought. You can not only embrace seasonality, like embracing it in terms of what I mentioned during the academic year, right? Like these things, like you can predict when it's going to get stressful. So rather than fight it, like embrace it and make constructive decisions in order to mitigate it. But you can also create seasonality by looking at that high level of your career over years. What season are you in your career right now? What season do you want to be in next? And really making decisions that help you create that and accepting it. I think that with the kind of capitalist system of production kind of world that we live in, we've taken the humanity out of the year, out of like these seasons, out of the day, and we're humans in the end. So embracing our humanity is going to help us achieve our goals better. Those things that you want to get done, the change you want to make in the world, that is going to happen when you treat yourself humanely, and humans live in seasons. We are not robots. So think about it. Think about what season of your career do you want to be in? Think about the next 1, 3, 5, 7 years. How do you embrace seasonality in the academic year? How can you create seasonality in your week or in your day? These things are going to help you enjoy your job more and also hit your goals and get your writing done. Because if you put the importance on your writing, if you place it in the season and the spaciousness that you're creating, then you're going to have so much more fun doing it and you're going to get more of it done. All right. I hope that you embrace and create seasonality. Remember to get on the wait list for Navigate if you would like some structured help with that. We are running a summer cohort. We would love for you to join. Get on the wait list so that you'll be the first to know when we open applications. Have a wonderful day. Bye. thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.